Dateline, Berlin, 1945. There's a war going on. Dateline, Oxford, 2005. Someone makes a game about that war. Dateline, everywhere, last year. Someone else ports that game to the Wii. This is Derek from Classic Game Room, and I'm reporting from the front line of the Nintendo Wii's late life cycle half-assery. I'm down in the trenches with a Wii remote, a balance board, and a whole ton of AA batteries, and honestly, we're being bogged down by heavy lack of development effort. In fact, incoming, it's Sniper Elite for the Nintendo Wii. There's something to be said for reviewing a game on its own merits, but you know what? This isn't 2005. When Sniper Elite released that year for the PlayStation 2, the critical consensus was that it's a decent game. When it released last year for the Wii, the critical consensus was that no one cared in the slightest. And that's because the game hasn't aged well enough to warrant this kind of re-release, let alone such a careless one. Now, with that disclaimer out of the way, if it doesn't bother you that this is a port of a 5-year-old game from the previous generation of consoles, you might have a decent time with Sniper Elite. Of course, even then, that good time is dependent upon how open you are to playing games that feel as dated as they look. Sniper Elite is a tactical third-person shooter from Rebellion Developments, same studio that brought you stuff like Aliens vs. Predator and The Simpsons game. But this Wii port was handled by someone else, and that's really one of the things that defines Sniper Elite on the Wii. There's this pervasive feeling, a kind of disconnect between the intention of its creators and the interpretation of its recyclers. Nonetheless, you play as a sharpshooting American operative in the middle of enemy territory. Disguised as a German, your mission is to prevent the Soviets from taking the Nazis' atomic blueprints and recover them instead for the Americans. Basically, you're the middleman in a very uncomfortable situation. To achieve this mission, let alone play this game, patience is required. Sniper Elite relies heavily on tactical gameplay, incorporating stealth elements and a unique focus on distance into its gameplay. That distance comes from the idea that you're a sniper. The whole point of the game is to sneak up on your enemies, keep a safe distance, and drop their bodies to the ground before they even feel the sting of the bullet. Alright, so he probably felt that one. I do like the core game. You're sneaking around, using camouflage, shooting from a distance, and the steeper difficulties even factor in things like the wind and gravity and your heartbeat, and all that makes nailing a headshot from a few hundred feet away a whole lot more challenging. But again, this is a 5-year-old PS2 game, and what's more, this is a 5-year-old PS2 game that hasn't aged very well. Newer games have really improved upon a lot of the ideas in Sniper Elite, and what's worse, it also suffers from poor controls on the Wii. Now the good news is that Sniper Elite at least benefits from the Wii's pointer. The accuracy you gain from substituting analog sticks with IR control is pretty substantial. On the other hand, everything else feels clunkier on Wii thanks to poor implementation. There's a lot of motion, but unfortunately there's a lot less responsiveness. This game is basically a victim of circumstance. It's a lazy port of a game that is really showing its age, which makes it even less appealing. In fact, the worst thing about Sniper Elite is the fact that this 5-year-old game, ported to a more powerful console a generation later, somehow plays and looks worse than ever. If you've got your crosshairs on this game, disengage, soldier. This one's just not worth the time.